Hey there, welcome to my little farm kitchen. My name is Chrissy and today we are going to take a little peek behind the scenes in my home bakery. So if you have been here for a while, you probably know that we homestead here on a little piece of land in East Texas. My husband and our 7 children, the older ones come and go now. We've got a few that are almost grown, one that is. But we grow food and we like to just live a simple, healthy life. One thing we have done as here from the farm as a means of connecting more with the local community and also doing something from the farm that can bring in some income for our family is I have started a home bakery. Now I ran it for 6 months. End of last year through to the beginning of summer. I've taken a couple of weeks off, take a couple of months off through the summer, and I've relaunched it again in the last little bit. I've done a couple of videos about that, but today I just wanted to talk more about behind the scenes, what that looks like, how do you set that up, how do you start, because all of those things I found was so new to me and very much something I just had to kind of hunt around and search quite a bit to get the answers I needed. And I think in the first 6 months, I kind of just winged it and went, you know what, I'll just do what I can and we'll see what happens. Whereas this time I've been a lot more intentional about how I've gone about it. There's a big difference between well, there is and there isn't. I was going to say there's a big difference between baking for your family, which I've been doing for 22 years now or more, but there's a difference between doing that and setting up a bakery from your home where you're selling to the public. Now, the only reason there's a big difference, it's still all baking, right? So if you have those skills, you have those skills. But the thing that I have had to step into, learn, grow in, and I'm not putting myself out there as a super experienced from the retail customer perspective. I'm just going to share with you what I've been doing and what I've been learning, because I know when I started, I did have a bit of a time finding information that was really pertinent to home bakers. Now, I think there's a bit more. I'm going to share with you a couple of resources that I've discovered now that when I was first looking, when I started last year, that wasn't available. Now it is, and a couple of them that I just didn't find when I was starting and I have found now, and I found them really helpful. So I guess how it started for me is I would bake things for our family and for friends, and people would say, oh, this is so good, you should sell this. And, I'm like, oh, thank you, that's nice. Or I'd take things to a potluck dinner or, a church meeting, and someone would say something like that. And I would think, oh, that's nice. But I really didn't think of it seriously. And when I did start last year, I kind of had more of the, well, I don't know if this is going to work. So I didn't really, I guess, take it super serious. I just thought, I'll start baking some things, I'll advertise, and we'll see what happens. And it did end up being a lot more successful than I anticipated. But I think I hindered myself by not taking it more seriously at the beginning. And then I took a couple of months off through the summer. I had a lot of other things going on that needed my attention, and I was feeling really stretched thin and like I needed to step back from some things. I was also doing here on YouTube the 100 Days of Homesteading Challenge, and that was a daily filming, editing, uploading challenge that I was doing. So you can go back and check that out if you haven't seen that, if that's of interest. But it was taking a lot of time. So it kind of meant that I stepped back from the home bakery as well as some family things that were going on. So that ended up being my decision, which I think actually was really good in the end, because it just let me clear my head and focus on what I needed to at the time. But when I went back to thinking, okay, I think I'm going to restart, I wanted to be a bit more organized and be a bit more intentional, mainly with things like marketing and the behind the scenes thing, which I am going to tell you right now is not my strong suit. I mean, you put me in the kitchen with a bunch of ingredients, or you put me in the garden and I am a super happy camper and very relaxed. But you put me in front of a computer and say, okay, get yourself organized. I kind of like, it's not really my thing. So I have had to really learn. What I decided in the beginning is, all right, if I'm going to take this seriously, even though it's a very small at the like home business, I'm going to do a business plan. I'm going to try and be a little bit more intentional and think it through. So in the beginning, I found just a couple of one-page, I did like several of these one-page business plans that I literally Googled basic one-page business plans. And I clicked on images. You know how there's that little tab at the top, and I just looked for ones that kind of seemed to make sense with the type of business that I was doing, and printed them off and just penciled in, jotted down some notes. Then after a little while, I discovered a channel and a website called Philosophy of Yum. The lady's name is Aurelia from Philosophy of Yum, and she has a business plan that is specifically for a home bakery. She actually has a lot of really good resources. And I want to point her out to you in case you are looking at a home bakery. I highly recommend you look up her website. She actually is based, I believe, in South Africa, but the information she gives is very generic and very applicable no matter where you are. And you can see from her reviews and from things that people have written in that she is helping people or has helped people in all different parts of the world. So not just in South Africa. And I do think that's one thing I really want to point out as being important when you're finding information, is just really carefully check your sources. Because I did stumble upon another home baker who was touting herself to have had all this success and to know a fair bit. And when I looked into it more, I discovered that perhaps wasn't too honest. So anyway, just be careful. So she gets you to write a mission statement and to think about the personality of your bakery and what sets your bakery apart, how it's going to be different from another. I guess the feel of the bakery and the culture and the branding of it. And I think those are things I hadn't really thought about at all. She does get you to do a 1 year, 2 year, and 5 year list of goals or plan of how you want the bakery to be looking at those points, which is a little challenging when you're starting out and you're like, oh, I don't know. But I do think it's helpful to just, where do you want to be in the, and I found the 1 year one the easiest, and then the 5 year one probably the next easiest, because I'm like, well, who knows? You can kind of just dream big by that point, but 2 years, I don't know. So, but I think it's helpful to challenge yourself to answer those questions. There was a look at your customers, and I do think that's important because that's going to vary depending on where you live and the culture of the community around you and what they're looking for. So if I lived in the middle of downtown Houston and more of a ritzy area, you really have to look at this. Like, there might be more of a demand for organic. There might be more of a demand for certain types or fancier bakes, croissants and things like that. Whereas if which I am, in a regional rural area, then it might be more just about your daily bread and your cinnamon rolls, like if you are in an area where people are more health conscious, maybe your sourdough and your freshly milled flours are going to do better. maybe if you're not. And it's not to say you can't cross those boundaries, but I do think it's really good to be aware of them. Hey, well, it is another day. It is the next day because I was filming away and I had a visit from a friend. So I stopped filming and anyway, I'm back again. So where was I? We were talking about the business plan. So I really did find this very helpful to go ahead and, especially with this one that is targeted more to home bakeries, because like I said, initially I did do a couple of generic business plans, and that was helpful. Like it just got the cogs turning and it got me thinking about some things I maybe hadn't thought of before. One of the biggest challenges that that this whole process has really helped me with is pricing and labeling. So pricing is something that really stressed me out. I don't like pricing. Just to be perfectly honest, I find it really challenging. And Aurelia from the Philosophy of Yum, where I have got a lot of this information, really helped me to get my mindset right on that and change how I was thinking about it. She points out that a lot of home bakers are by nature very frugal people, and often because it's a home bakery, they maybe are stay-at-home mums or people who are looking to create an income from home while they are maybe mothering their children, homeschooling, or doing other things. So they're juggling multiple things. Sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes they're working full-time job and trying to do a home bakery on the side. So usually that means, just by the nature of it, it's home bakers are not usually super wealthy people, not coming at this with an expectation of paying a premium for baked goods, because maybe that's not something they would do because, hey, they just make it themselves. And that's very much was my challenge, looking at it from my perspective instead of from the consumer's perspective. And the truth is, I have been baking for 20 plus years, and a lot longer than that, probably 30 years, and I don't really consider buying baked goods because I make them all myself, and I have a large family I'm feeding, so being frugal is deeply embedded in my mindset and my thinking. So I had to really step back, and one of the things, a tool she gives you that I highly recommend if you are starting a home bakery is it is a calculator that she has on her website, the link to it, and you basically put in all of the different things that have to be considered in costing. So it's not just your ingredients. This is the other thing I didn't really consider. It's the ingredients, it's your wages per hour, which that can be tricky to calculate, and you don't you really just do active work time. So the time it takes for a loaf to rise, I don't count that in my wages per hour because I'm not actively working on the recipe at that time. It's just sitting on the bench. So I just do active minutes of work and a per hour rate. And but it's other things like electricity, the ovens are running, the refrigerator is used and running, the things that you need to factor in as costs. Obviously packaging comes into it with a bakery, and you're selling those baked goods. So like I have little boxes that I sell cookies and cinnamon rolls in. The bread, it's bags, then there's labeling costs, so you've got to factor all that in. But this calculator really, really helped me. Okay, I'm just going to show you. The other thing she does is send you the, she has a link to, that's probably not the best one, this cakecost.com, which is fantastic. It's also super helpful because I had done it all myself previously, like the last time when I was trying to calculate ingredient costs, and it is challenging. It just is challenging. So this cakecost.com, you can go on there and write out a recipe, and you have to enter like your measurements. So say I've just got this freshly milled sandwich bread recipe up on my screen. So I've got 1/3 of a cup of oil, 1/3 of a cup of honey, 2 teaspoons of salt. So you go down the list and put in your ingredients and the quantities. And then there's a section where you can go over and wherever you're sourcing that from. So wherever it is, you put in the cost that you paid for that ingredient and the measurement of it. So say, for example, I bought a 5-pound bag of flour. I would put how much that bag was and how much it weighed. So it was 5 pounds for, like I think I actually buy 10-pound bags from Costco for about $17 or $18 or something for the organic unbleached flour. And so I put that in, and then it will calculate it down for me. How much is then the 3 cups that go into recipe X? So it just takes a lot of the math out, which if you're like me, that is wonderful, because maths is not my favorite. So cakecost.com has been a godsend. And then it will actually shoot out, and these printouts aren't great because my printer needs help at this point, but it gives you like a pie graph, which the colors aren't working on my printer, but it shows you how much percentage is ingredients, labor, overheads, profit, and it also helps step you through calculating your profit margin and what that's going to be. So I just didn't have the confidence to really price things. I was going really off of, I guess, I did do some research, local research in town, like at local bakeries and other people that were selling breads online. And I just tried to say, oh, well, they're selling it for this much, so I guess I'll go around that. And some of it I thought was really unreasonable, so I would come under it, or whatever the case may be. But it was really just random and guessing. This takes the guesswork out of it and makes it so much more sensible, and makes sure that all of your hard work is being covered and that you're not wasting your time, because you can end up doing that, honestly. And when I went back and did this for all of my recipes, some of them were about spot on, and I haven't changed the pricing much. Some of it I was undercharging. Some of it I was like, oh, I need to actually bring that down. So it just has really helped me to get a solid footing with pricing, because yeah, pricing can be a bit stressful. So pricing and labeling. Okay, now I am going to confess that I have a beautiful friend who has helped me, because labeling was tricky. Now you have to comply with certain, for here it's the Texas cottage food laws. There's certain requirements under labeling. It has to make a certain statements, like for example, it has to say this food is made in a home kitchen and is not inspected by the Department of State Health Services or a local health department. So you have to like make that disclosure on your label. It has to have the ingredients, it has to have the name of the bakery and the address on there. And you have to state any allergens, potential allergens that might be in the ingredient listing. So that is going to vary, I guess, state to state. And some states are more stricter on their requirements than others. But I ended up using Canva, and I guess my tip is find yourself a Corey, because Corey helped me. And you might be really great with Canva, and that might be your thing. I am not great technically with things like that. And so it really helped me that she helped, like it took her 5 minutes, guys. You just need to find yourself a Corey because in 5 minutes she came up with a design, and Anyway, so then it was super helpful. I guess that's not particular. You just have to, maybe you've got that nailed and you're all good. But she did it on Canva and then she sent it to me, and I'm still like, what took me ages is figuring out how to get it from Canva. I had to resize some things because when I first printed it, it was too small. Probably depends on the quality of your printer as well. But anyway, I had to do that. And then what I did, I'll just tell you what I did. This was Corey's recommendation. I went to I have found you can get this way cheaper on Amazon. I was kind of running out of time and I didn't have time for an Amazon order to get here. So I went to Office Depot, which is in town, and found it. But I did look online. I'm like, man, if I was more organized, and next time it was like half the price of this on Amazon. So I'll be doing that next time. These are little square stickers. I mean, it depends what you're labeling and what size you want, but you stick in these sheets into the printer. There's a template, so they just have all the stickers on there, little squares. There's a template you can download, and then I just drop and drag from the template form, from Canva across to the template form, and then I can print that out. So, I mean, if I can figure that out, anyone can, because yeah, it's not my forte. So got the stickers, or the labels all done, which those were the two things that stressed me most, was the labeling and the pricing. So having that sort of squared away is really a big relief. Okay, another thing that she has really helped with, she basically says, listen, home bakery success is 30% about the baking and 70% about marketing. And that, I think that's probably true of just about any business that you are trying to get off the ground. And again, you know, baking is my love and my strength, not necessarily the marketing. So this is a thing I'm just having to learn as I go. One thing that she talks about is telling your story and making your story part of your marketing, putting a face to the name. I think that helps. She did suggest, which is something I'm going to be doing in the near future here, is some market stands just to help promote and get your name out there. So there's a upcoming farmers market at our local Tractor Supply, so we're going to do a stand there and maybe put out some flyers. I have a Facebook page that is dedicated to the bakery. I did rebrand it. I don't think I told you guys this yet. Maybe I did. But previously, when I did the last 6 months of the bakery, it was just called 9 Little Aussies Bakery, Home Bakery, because that was the name of my YouTube channel, and I thought, well, let's just keep it all the same. She talks a lot about that, about your branding, about your marketing, and about the importance of it being about the product and the consumer, not about the baker. And so following that advice, I decided to rename it, because 9 Little Aussies is obviously about us. It's not necessarily about what the consumer might be looking for, what the customer is looking for, and making them aware that it is even what it is. You know, like, you can tack home bakery on there, but it makes it, if you can find your niche and make that part of your branding and part of your name, that can really help. So anyway, what I ended up deciding and going with is Goodness Grains Home Bakery. The ability to, the importance of making nourishing food for people is really a big part of why I bake. And so that was important to me that that was reflected in the name. And I am offering both freshly milled baked goods as well as organic unbleached white flour baked goods, because, and a lot of that is because of what the demand is right here in my local area. But it's really important to me that, and I'm hopeful to include in the future some classes and be able to, I guess, open people's understanding to the importance of freshly milled grains and why you might want to include that. So I'm sort of offering the breadth of different breads, but I am going to continue offering the organic white breads, because the simple reality is that's what the demand is telling me, that that's what the local customers are wanting right now. So we'll see where that goes in the future, but for now, that's what we're doing. What have we talked about? Pricing, labeling, marketing, systems. This is another thing that, so I guess in my mind, like in the past, I have kind of put off these things. I've put off the marketing and the systems and the repricing, and because it's all the brain work. But if you can take the time, and it has taken time, like it's taken a lot of time to step back and go, no, I'm going to reanalyze all of this, and I'm going to really slowly step through it to make sure it's right. And in the end, I feel like it's really worth doing that, because then you're walking forward with confidence, not in the back of my mind thinking, I really need to reassess X, Y, or Z and see if I'm doing the right thing. Systems is a big one. So this is a tiny example just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. I make sourdough brioche cinnamon rolls. And I struggled last time because I've always made them in a cast iron skillet. And I have a 13-inch cast iron skillet, which is pretty big, and it does one batch of 12 cinnamon rolls. Well, I only have one pan. So if I have more orders than what will fit in that one pan, and being sourdough, I can't just like quickly rotate, because there's a long fermentation process. Like it takes a couple of days for one batch. So I was thinking, how am I going to do this? Because people seem to really love the cinnamon rolls, but how am I going to allow that to grow in my little home kitchen? Do I need to buy more cast iron skillets, or how is that going to, because they also do an overnight ferment in the fridge. So I've got my little family's fridge that's not going to fit like 5 skillets in there full of cinnamon rolls. So I was just puzzling over, and it took me a while to think it through. And then I realized I have some rectangular ceramic casserole dishes. And so I thought, I wonder if, and I did a couple of practice runs, and sure enough, the 12 fit right in there nicely. Now, the thing is with ceramic, you can't put it straight from a fridge into a hot oven, or it will crack and bust. So I do have to be cautious of that and make sure it's out long enough to get to room temperature before I then put it in the oven, which mostly is fine because I can. Anyway, it's just analyzing all of these little details in your system and making sure that it works. So I have 3 of those rectangular dishes, plus I have my skillet. So that has multiplied by 4 what I could do previously with cinnamon rolls. Now, I'm sure there's going to reach a point where I'm like, okay, now what do I do? We've grown past that. But at the moment, it's fine. It's working totally fine. So it's just taking the time to really think through, how many things can I fit in one oven load so that I am not, I'm making it more efficient and I'm not taking up too much time. And it does vary depending on the type of thing you are baking, which is another reason to consider. Is that an item that's going to do well in the bakery? One of the things I'm offering at the moment, and I don't know if I will continue to, it just will depend on demand, I think, but I do a sourdough artisan loaf, but it gets baked in a Dutch oven which I can only fit one of those in my oven. Now I have seen other people do it in tins with, you sort of put one tin and then another tin on top to create that closed environment. I don't have those currently. I'm not sure. That may allow me to fit more in an oven, and I would have to experiment to see how well that works. But that is one loaf in one oven load, as opposed to, and that sells for about $10 for one loaf, as opposed to I can put, with the cinnamon rolls, I can get all 3 pans, which have 12 rolls each in them. So, you know, you have all that, so that potentially, and there's 4 rolls in a cinnamon roll order. So each pan holds 3 orders, 3 full orders of 4 rolls. That's a lot more income that can come from one oven load of cinnamon rolls as opposed to sourdough bread. So do you know what I'm saying? Like, you just got to look at those sort of things. And the people where I got a lot of help on that and thinking through my systems and thinking through what I was offering was the Flour Barn Homestead, which is a couple of sisters, and I think they work with their dad from a homestead up in the north. I'm not sure if they're in Ohio. Anyway, I'll have to remember where they are, but they're up in one of the northern states, and they now have a YouTube channel, and she goes through a lot of these background things, which is so helpful. So I'm really, really grateful to have found her and all of that information. Okay, last thing I want to just share with you briefly in this look at behind the scenes in my home bakery is being ready for the flops, because you're going to have them. And what I mean by the flops is things that go wrong. Like the second week of reopening the bakery, my oven went on the blink and it started blasting this error code at me. It was turned off. It wasn't even on at the time. And it was like beep, beep, beep. And I couldn't get it to turn off without pulling the whole oven out and unplugging it from the wall. And that was the day before a bake day. So I was like, oh my goodness, what am I gonna do? Now I do have the backup of my mother-in-law is next door, and I could always run over and borrow her oven, but that would have been, you know, not very efficient, and definitely it would have been a last minute save. But what I ended up doing is, because I looked at, found the error code in the manual and found that it was a heat detector rod in the back that may be malfunctioning, because I looked at calling someone in to, like a repairman, but the per hour rate they charge, like I just couldn't do that. It's going to be so expensive. And this part I found I could get on Amazon for $15, but I'm like, oh, that's not going to help me because it's going to take 2 days to get here. What am I going to do about the bake day tomorrow? Now, in this particular instance, it all worked out because a really lovely friend of mine had a while ago given me a second oven that was sitting out in the garage because she knew that we had started a home bakery and they were renovating and pulling out the old oven. And she said, do you want this one? And I thought, yeah, that might be handy. I'm so glad I said yes, because we just wheeled that one in and wheeled the old one out until we could get it fixed. So, but that did cause some hiccups because every oven bakes differently, and this oven definitely ran differently to my oven. It was burning things a little on the bottom, so you know, and I didn't have a lot of time to juggle that. I just had, okay, I've got an oven at least, we're gonna go with this and pray it works. So I did, you know, I had very understanding, patient customers. So I was able to say, look, I really apologize if this isn't 100% like it usually is. Nothing was terrible. It all worked out, but you're gonna have things like that happen. Stuff is gonna go wrong. And rather than panic and go, oh no, I can't do this, you just got to look for other options. And at the end of the day, I could have just called all my customers and said, hey, I'm really sorry. The oven's gone this week. I'm going to have to put your orders on hold, or what would you like me to do? I mean, that at the end of the day, I can't really help that. But it's just having the mindset of problems are going to come up. That's going to happen. We're just going to have to learn how to roll with it, how to adjust, and how to handle it. Yes, so things are going to go wrong. And there'll be times when like the bread doesn't rise like it's supposed to, and maybe that batch of yeast was bad, or maybe you didn't do the second rise long enough on the sourdough, and you know, like things, it's not foolproof because we're human and mistakes are going to happen. I think the more I do it and the more practiced you become, hopefully your systems will improve and get better and better. But I think it's important to not beat yourself up when things go wrong, but just to go, okay, what can I learn from this? How can I make sure I'm communicating really clearly with my customers and that their needs are met, and that I can apologize where necessary and make up, you know, maybe with an extra batch of something, whatever the case may be, to make sure that everyone is happy. Okay, well, that's my little peek behind the scenes. Let me know if you have any particular questions. These are just the things I'm working through as I restart. So yeah, if you have any thoughts, or you have a question that's burning in your mind that you're like, I wish you'd answered that, then please feel free to comment below and let me know what it is, and I'll do my best to answer it. Well, happy baking, people. I hope you have a fabulous week. Sunshine and raindrops, and I will see you again next time.